Okay, thank you.
So as I was saying that I wanted to draw more out of Judith and to bring her into the community a little bit more. And so pleased to invite her to open for Al Black tonight. Her voice is deserving of your ears. And I think she is one of the poets of the people that Al likes to talk about. Al is certainly known as a poet of the people. He produces gatherings of writers and musicians, poets, both in Columbia and throughout the Southeast. He's the author of 2 collections that are on the table in the back. I Only Left for Tea and Man with Two Shadows. His work has also been published in a variety of other places, including one I think that he's particularly proud of, which is Wiley. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. And maybe you can talk about that a little if you want to. His work, as I said, has been published in other places. He is a poet and an activist, a creator and a challenger. He has hosted over 1,000 poetry events in Columbia and in the Southeast. I consider him my mentor and my dear friend. So I want to welcome Judith first and then Al. But who wants just an ordinary introduction? So I had them draw cards. And Judith got the wombat. And this is from the Oracle of the Dreamtime. So I just want to tell you what the Oracle of the Dreamtime says about Judith. The wombat is all about the home environment and the structures we build around ourselves for protection from the elements. It represents our sense of security, our personal space, and how we feel about sharing them. The issues of boundaries may be present. Like the wombat, you may have unwelcome guests, or you may feel that your personal space has been violated or invaded. The card emphasizes the balance between logical thought and personal preference in the choice of a home. With the appearance of the wombat, home-oriented issues will certainly be in the air. Wombat is shown emerging from his home. And I think that's so appropriate for you tonight.
Yeah.
So appropriate. Al took the very first card off the deck, which is the frog. Let's see, just a second. The frog. Yes. Joy and merriment are flooding your issue. If the earth appears at the bottom, there may be an aspect of your issue which seeks replenishment. Something is missing and progress will not be made in your situation until this need is met. Go on, have a laugh. That sounds like Al. See the funny side of your situation. It is so easy to take life much too seriously. Even those things which seem terribly serious do have a lighter side, as we know. All right, good choices. And let's welcome up, yes? Oh, and Jim Lundy's going to come up and do a door prize. Thank you.
I'll make this quick. 100 years ago, this month was the first meeting of the 1924-1925 calendar year. And it was a year that DeBose Hayward was elected president. He was unfortunately very, very laser focused on writing his book Porgy, which would later be turned into Porgy and Bess the opera. And he was kind of an absentee president. And for that first meeting on October 20th, he was not there. He was in North Carolina writing his book. So John Bennett filled in for him, and he was not happy, but he wrote some very harsh words about DeBose Hayward, and which I included in my book. But so tonight, in honor of John Bennett and his bad mood, the door prizes, if you look on the back of your program and you look at the board list, at the very bottom is the position of chair of writers group. And most of you will have nobody in there because the writers group currently doesn't have a facilitator. But if you see John Bennett there, then you won a door prize. So, all right.
Who won? Great.
Anyone else? See
Excellent.
John Bennett.
Everyone over here. Very good. Congratulations.
Again, out of here, get out of Judy's personal space, like you got me. Well, and
Here she comes, out of her home. Judith Reese, welcome her, please.
Am I holding that?
Yes, okay. I think there might be a stand if you don't.
Thank you. Hi. I would like to say thank you to Tamara for having me here tonight, and I'm going to have to speak a little louder, I can tell. I have been a fan of poetry probably since 4th grade, when I discovered in the stacks of our school library a book by Edward Lear of his wonderful quirky drawings and limericks. Little did I know that years later, limericks would become very important as I married into a family that all told limericks, and many of them starting in Nantucket. And I sat on the floor in the stacks and read this book, which I couldn't believe was printed and was there for me to read. And that had me hooked. I was hooked on poetry after that. And 10 years ago, Dolores Weitzer, from the manager of Poe Library, started a memoir group. And since I was newly retired, I decided to join her. And we've been going strong ever since. And there were so many poets in the group that we begged her to start a poetry group too. And so she did that about 6 years ago. And our group at Poe kept going even during the pandemic, and still is to this day going. One of our members, Francis, is in the back. And it's been a delightful group, and I want to shout out to them to say thank you. They plus the PSSE workshops, plus a course I took with Lisa Hayes Jackson, whom I met here at a workshop, have been instrumental in helping me to define my poetry a little bit more. And again, thanks to Tamara for this evening. I'm going to start with a poem that I read for the first time when I stood up to read poetry in front of anyone at an open mic night before the pandemic. And this is the poem that I read. What we're too polite to say. Snowbirds with bright feathers come for the weather, they say. A marvelous day, sun shining, high in the 70s in January, no less. We smile at the tourists who wear shorts in the winter. Just an occasional flood, earthquake, hurricane, great white, hammerhead shark, Portuguese man of war, copperhead, rattlesnake, black widow spider, and oh yeah, coyotes. Coyotes, they didn't mention that in the brochure. Well, they hardly ever eat humans, so don't be worried. But dogs and cats are easy prey. What? No, you'll be okay. Got steel-toed shoes, pepper spray? Not funny for everybody, but okay. So the next poem I want to read is called Twilight Song, and it was printed in Fall Lines in 2022. You're associated with that, right, Alan? Yeah. And it's about Carolina wrens, an animal near and dear to my husband and I. We feed them mealworms, and one night David was out with a spoonful of mealworms, putting it in the food tray, and one of the Carolina wrens was so insistent that it chased him up the tree and grabbed a worm out of his spoon. And the next day it chased him up the stairs into our house. So we have been in love with them ever since. This one is not about the mealworms, but it's about their songs, and it's called Twilight Song. Distant canopies of dark oaks silhouette in the sky, float in a veil of cotton fog. It seeps through branches in ribbons of dawn. Carolina wren identifies. Dewy, 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 like a foghorn that pierces through me. It calls nearby. I strained to hear the faint reply from farther in the woods. Tethered together, we three, in birdsong, 2 wrens and me. This one received honorable mention last year from PSSC, but it is now being printed by Kakalak in 2024. It's called Shop Talk. We were drawn to Father's workshop as electron beams to a picture tube. The black and white TV he built came alive for us like magic. Only Dad could adjust the horizontal picture scroll, blue bubbled on the kitchen stove to laminate a TV cabinet. In his workshop, Dad spoke the language of measure, cut, drill, and solder. We talked shop, only shop by his side. For personal problems, we went to Mom. On his workbench sat the components to build a Schubert organ and hundreds of resistors we color-coded for our colorblind father. I can see him in fluorescent glow, his back bent over the workbench. As he studied the schematics, his slender hands moved in an elegant dance. His eyes, enormously magnified, looked up at me. Want to help? In my hands, the solder sizzled against hot iron, flowed like quicksilver, fused to the circuit board, steam rising like burnt toast. Pure alchemy. What need had we for dialogue? This one was printed by Kakalak in 2022, and it's called Cassia. It's about those bushes that grow as tall as our house and die back every year. They come back in spring, but they don't bloom until October. Cassia. When summer winnows and winter cast spindly shadows, the cassia lies dormant. Its boughs bud first in autumn, bloom upward on gilded tips, explode like shooting stars. Beauty we behold for just a breath, as silken petals softly spill to dust, reminding me, in grayest of gathering gloom, joy yet flickers. Last month, I attended Claire Bateman's workshop, along with Al Black and his wife. And Claire read us a poem by Lisa Bueller called Monet Refuses the Operation. And this poem was in response to that. And I have to say, I was just delighted with Claire's prose poetry and how it freed me to be able to write something. So this is my first effort in prose poetry. And it's called On the Day Monet Went Blind. On the day Monet went blind, as the shadows crept over his eyes, his water lily paintings drained of color, no longer leaves of brilliant yellow-green, lilies cupped in rose-colored petals, nor ponds reflections of ultramarine. Instead, the ghost-like lilies stood against a backdrop of Payne's gray, Monet's world now defined by murky tints. But that couldn't be the end of the story, because Monet had impressed upon his memory the utter brilliance of his garden at Giverny. In his mind, though blind, Monet could still walk its pebbled paths, feel the iris fronds wave at his thighs as he passed by, detect the flavor of the rose that framed his door, and the heady fragrance of wisteria that hung over the footbridge. As Monet set forth, he could feel the light surround his seasons, for on the day Monet went blind, he was given the gift of second sight. This is a very short poem, and it's one that I must have written 300 times before I got it to be the way I wanted it to be, which if we heard Al speak today about revisions are totally necessary, but sometimes it can really stump you for a long time. This is called Interlaced. You wrap me in your arms, I rustle in your leaves, entwined about your trunk aloft in light and breeze. entangled in a moment, rooted in time and place, present in the memory of you and your embrace. And the last one that I'm going to read today is was published by the Poetry Society. It's the first and only poem that I've ever had published by the Poetry Society, although I've gotten a couple honorable mentions. And it won the Society Prize in 2023. So now I'm kind of afraid to speak ever. But a little background, I attended a jazz festival in New Orleans that Prince helped organize whenever I lived there one year. And we went one night to hear a musical performance at a venue in the Crescent on St. Charles, where the trolley cars run. And the only sign was a neon light that's shown in the window that said one word, Rosie's. Now imagine you're entering a darkened room with an intimate nightclub setting with linen-covered tables and drinks in tall glasses and velvet chairs next to the stage. This is called Gospel of the Blues. He cradled Lucille like a child or a lover, like he needed no other to breathe. Words slipped down his lips over satin lapels, made me slap my knees, made me cry, baby, please, don't go. He drew so deep on the downbeat, it tugged every womb in the room. Men shouted, women screamed when he bent that string, really shook that dog leg till it begged. And we trembled at the truth of his lament, undeniably, recognizably kin. Oh, the thrill, the anguish of joy pulled from pain when B.B. King sang the blues. And now for what you've been waiting for. Al.
I'm gonna bring some coffee out. I tried to find some.
Thank you.
Yeah, issue. Don't want to stay up all night. So drink the coffee anytime.
Let's clap one more time for Judy.
Yes.
And I'm gonna apologize in advance to Judy, because there's gonna be a time I'm gonna see her and I'm gonna hesitate on her name, and then I'll go, Wombat. So, what I'm gonna do is, I'm not gonna explain the poems much. I'm just gonna read them, say the title and read them, because I prefer to have poems speak for themselves. And not because I'm getting worse eyesight, but because my arms are getting too short to hold my poems far enough away from my face, I'm putting these readers on. This first one I'm going to read, I was thinking of a poet, which we all know, and you'll know the line when you hear it. And I wrote a haiku for her. It does not matter where into the wild you flee, your shadow finds you. That was from Mary Oliver. Tonight is a night of small poems, imprecise, half-uttered thoughts, the hinge screwed on the door of our escape, pivoting in and out of the room. Roe v. Wade. Speak out, even if no one listens. Whisper, if only your friends can hear. Sit silent, and they believe you approve. Still life. Rose in a pretty vase, waist deep in tap water, trying not to die. Beauty caught in full bloom, striking an objectified pose. compost pile calling its name. Talking with Mary. She says she walks to church each morning but does not go to mass. She says she lights a candle for all of her children ice took away. She says she talks with the statue of Mary, and Mary talks back. She says she avoids confession and the man behind the screen. She said she once threw holy water on a nun, hoping she would melt. She said she dreamed of becoming a virgin again, but not to be holy or pure. She said she wants to be a virgin so men don't own her. She said she wishes she could take her children back and hold them to her breast. She says she talks with the statue of Mary, and Mary talks back. Mary was made into a statue so she couldn't run away to a quaint country village for an anniversary weekend. Mary says she likes lowing cattle, angels singing in the night, and the smell of sheep, dirt, hay, and Joseph. Mary says she is thankful for 3 strangers at her door, the gold, frankincense, and myrrh they left. Mary says she used their treasure to bribe the border guards and keep her baby at her breast. She says she talks with the statue of Mary, and Mary cries, praying to the patriarchs. Threadbare dress, sinew and bone, calloused feet on ground, hands in air. I have 4 kids, don't call me lazy. I work 3 jobs, none pay a living wage. I make ends that have no ends meet. Pay me a living wage and give me my rights. I am not your incubator to impregnate and leave. A poem for Sally Hemings. In the middle of the night, well before dawn, a mockingbird performs bird calls outside your window. You remember that Thomas Jefferson took trained caged mockingbirds to France to remind him of home. Visitors recorded that one would perch on his shoulder, take food from his mouth, and sing as he played the violin. You never understood why a caged bird did not flee. Was it love, or comfort, or fear, or the jumbling of all 3? Daughter of light. Daughter of light, you have slept through your alarm. The sun is filtering through curtains hung a lifetime ago. You must leave his warm bed, no turning back. But how do you tell someone you must leave if they only know their own voice? When what you must say can only be said in the language of your dreams. Let your emotions lie in shredded heaps upon the floor of the house of your visitation. Walk away quickly, clad only by the sun. Leave only your bare footprints in the dew of his front yard. Kryptonite, the color of money. What if Superman was just strong, not super humble and brainy? What if he became a bully, drunk with power, and believed he was ordained to rule? What if he became a politician, a spy for Putin, a money launderer for Russian oligarchs? What if he didn't have a cute black curl on his forehead and wore a dead orange squirrel for a toupee? What if he date raped Lois Lane and forced himself on women again and again and again? What if he didn't believe truth, justice, and the American way applied to him? What if, despite all this, folks still bought his comic books and believed he was ordained to rule? Childhood friends. My childhood friends were numbers. We often played together, laying flashcards out across the living room floor like dominoes, pairing up lonely factors for dancing partners. Later at school, dancing was not allowed. We were chained in chalkboard dungeons, whipped with postulates and theorems, made to grovel in piles of chalk dust, silently calculating the end of our 12-year sentence. But some numbers would not be captured. They hid in the intersecting lines of window frames, the patterned holes in ceiling tiles, the prisms in the light fixtures, and the lines upon my tablet. I would close my ears and laugh in silent reverie at teachers who could not see the magic, or remember the stories of Pythagoras, or daydream with Newton under the apple tree, or gaze off in space with Einstein as he rode the train. Numbers used to play with me. We played dominoes in the sunlight. We danced about the room, laughing at the unbelievers who could not hear the music. Children of white shadow dancers. When first I learned of World War II and the cost of winning the war, I would lie on the living room floor and watch dust motes above my head shimmer in the sunlight, and imagined white shadow dancers the same age as myself, traced upon the ground, no longer able to dance. Abraham's altar. I read today that Ishmael and Isaac's children are reenacting a sacrificial passion play in rock-strewn fields of an unholy land, while rats hide in bunker situation rooms, playing virtual war games with people's lives. I don't care who's right and who is wrong, or who is being sacrificed. Stop the war. Coffee with cream. Reading the news, you realize the war never ended. Like World War II is World War I on a grander scale, and World War I was unfinished business of Napoleon, and the Crimean War was just taking a halftime break while Russia aired ads about being cheated on the sale of Alaska. Play will resume after Kublai Khan tries to invade Japan again, and Snoop Dogg is shilling music on the 21st century Shetland circuit. Tap dancing with Bojangles while Eminem impersonates Al Jolson, and they're calling it halftime entertainment. The Dakotas are a tax haven to fund the resurrection of Custer. And China is just now getting into colonizing Africa. and the war of democratic aggression is somehow still a northern thing, and conflicted, privileged white men had their manservant add so much cream to their cup of Martin Luther King coffee that it's hard to tell he was once black and bitter on the tongue and reading the news. You wish the war would end. Shift gears a little bit. Happy birthday, Larry. On Ferlinghetti's birthday, I want a cutting-edge independent bookstore in my hometown. I want to see the eccentrics among us celebrated. I want to see Kuryak and Bukowski, Chomsky and Sheehan in my favorite coffee shop. I want to drop acid and watch Leary and Ginsberg stand naked on stage arguing the cosmos, while a drunken Burroughs tries to moderate. I want Ezra Pound to become a communist. I want Hemingway's gun to misfire. I want Martin Luther King Jr. to stay in a Hilton with interior hallways. I want Maryland to know it's okay to grow old. I want to see Jeannie's navel on TV. I want to see Annette Funicello with high beams. I want her to tell Frankie Avalon to get lost because she's rocking Jimi Hendrix tonight at his pad. I want Pollyanna to call her aunt a bitch. I want the big bad wolf to eat bacon, lots of bacon. I want to know if an aroused Smurfette tastes like blueberry jam. I want to film a remake of Giant and have Rock Hudson and James Dean get caught by Elizabeth Taylor. I want Anne Rand and L. Ron Hubbard to tell their insipid followers that they are fiction writers and Atlas Shrugged and Dianetics ain't real. I want to relive junior high in a kinder, gentler way. I want to pay attention in English class. I want the Bee Gees to quit singing disco and go back to ballads. I want a pair of Superman glasses to hide my past behind. I want Lois Lane to get her Man of Steel. I want to feed Zoloft to the Hulk. I want to know why the Swamp Thing does not have a penis. I want Beauty to turn out the lights so the Beast isn't so self-conscious. I want them to show us that love is not about looks, class, race, or gender, and it is beautiful to be alive and love whomever you want to love. I want you to be kind to yourself, because how can you be kind to others unless you know how to be kind to yourself? Amen. I believe. I believe in Jesus of Nazareth, not the Roman Christ. I believe he walked on the earth and said he was a prophet of God, not a 3-in-1 Godhead tool. One answer fits all. The gospel did not mention a Trinity. That's just another Roman myth. I do not believe the stories that were created any more than I believe rabbits lay eggs and Persephone returns each year from Hades, so her mother will allow spring's return, but only in the northern hemisphere. I believe in a kick-ass Jesus who whipped the money changers and threw them out of the temple, and not the docile, pacifist Roman dictators needed him to be. I believe in an empathetic Jesus who fed his disciples one last meal, and the masses fish at the Sermon on the Mount because they were hungry. I do not believe in a transubstantiation of Christ or any other form of ritualized cannibalism. I believe that women rolled away the stone of unbelief and resuscitated the dead body of believers while Peter denied his disciplehood 3 times, and all men hid themselves away in fear of Revelation's Son. I believe you have a right to disagree with me. Accept the Roman myths. Drink magic, Welch's grape juice. Eat fortified, unleavened, mystic cracker bread. Believe you are somehow magically saved and can go back to sinning until next Sunday morning. And I believe that if I wait long enough, stale chocolate bunnies and marshmallow peeps will resurrect on Big Lots discount candy counters long after their end time expiration date or next Easter season rolls away, whichever comes first. Another little shift. Chaos theory. When the tilting of the earth chases away winter, I sit in the middle of the night on my porch, eyes shut, listening to night sounds with Jackson Pollock arguing about dripping liquid sounds splashed on a night sky and if they are art. He drank another beer and we began to argue, cursing something about Jungian therapists. He got up and left. A poem before dying. Lorca wrote of roosters, of eating cemetery grass, of weeping little boys, of snow, of guitars, of murder, of mothers dropping off to sleep, of a resurrection that will never come, and he makes me weep. I write of barking dogs, of feral cats, of trash on asphalt courts, of weeping little boys, of warm summer nights, of thumping bass and staccato beats, of blue light custodians of violence who sweep the street for shell casings to place in envelopes and file away, of mothers crying themselves to sleep, of the resurrection that came as a thief in the night, and still I weep. Who will write our vignettes of revolution? Let barking dogs and feral cats come back inside. Gather trash in the park, comfort weeping little boys, organize funeral processions, sip liquor from red plastic cups at candlelit vigils, clean the house and feed the children so mothers can sleep at night. Sing songs of freedom, live scriptures revealed on scraps of light before the rooster crows again. And who will dry our tears? We will. Dear Raphael, paint me a laughing Madonna with a postpartum belly rolls and hips, Joseph in the foreground fashioning a new crutch, her woolly-headed baby suckling on a swollen nipple, little hands playing with her other breast, all of them laughing and laughing at their good fortune. Somebody speaks Spanish better than me. Guernica? Guernica. Thank you. I was originally a voice major in college, and my voice teacher sang opera. You sung to the picture of Guernica hung above her piano, heads cocked, looking for mercy, but only fire came from the sky. The bull and the horse died too. The opera singer moved from New York City to marry a professor and live on Maple Street. You would practice scales together, and she would say, not to imitate others. Find your own voice. You placed your hands on her belly to feel where her power resonates. She would tell you this is how she learned, and this is how she found her voice. Years later, you saw an announcement that said she was performing with the Boston Symphony in Indianapolis. You wanted to go and say hello, say her voice was unique and beautiful, but you were afraid that she would ask if you still sang, practiced your scales, and found your own voice. But you didn't want to tell her you quit. You still see the picture of Garnica hung above her piano, heads cocked, looking for mercy, but only fire came from the sky. The bull and the horse died too. I'm getting close. To a friend with a dying pet. I would tell you about a free kitten given to us when we were poor. It got leukemia, cost us all kinds of money we didn't have, and the damn cat died anyway. But you don't want to hear about our expensive free cat, so I won't tell you how, even though it was sick, it snuggled and purred in our arms, and that somehow, even in its pain, it still brought us joy. This is called Haint Blue. Down here in the low country, you know what Haint Blue is. You carried the bird cage out onto the porch, hung it from the hook above the rose bushes that hugged the steps that led down into the yard. Hot coffee steamed in your hand. A green chameleon appeared in the bushes, jumped to the rail and raced up the post. Slowly it changed colors and disappeared into the bright blue ceiling of the porch. You unlatched the door of the cage. The bird stared out at the fields beyond the yard. For a moment, it sat on the wire edge of freedom, unsure of how to leave. Wings opened and it was gone. You sipped the last cold coffee in the bottom of your cup, knew that when winter comes, you will miss the bird that sat caged in the corner of your living room. You leaned back in the chair, stare up and searched for the lizard that hides in the blue, blue ceiling sky. Maybe. Once we were junkies, drunks, stoners, hustlers, and pimps, trading bodies for dimes. If I forgive you your trespasses, maybe you will find a way to forgive yourself. And if you forgive me my trespasses, maybe I'll find a way to forgive myself. And if we are both forgiven, maybe we will heal. And maybe the kingdom will come. Turn your porch light on. We are all humans. I don't care about your labels. Liberal, conservative, boomer, X or Y, homed, homeless, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, pagan, Muslim, Jew, black, white, pink or green, gay, straight, transgendered, citizen, immigrant. We're all on a reunion path. Turn your porch light on and walk each other home. Insomnia number 67. You wake from a dream unable to sleep and tell yourself that after you die, you don't want to stumble in the dark or get lost between worlds. You resolve to leave a light on at the earth end of the tunnel, and then you realize Mom will tell Dad you left the light on, and he will make you return to turn it off. And this becomes another reason why you can't go back to sleep. Two more. Orphans. If we live long enough, we will become orphans. And someday you and I, and someday everyone who has ever known us, and someday everyone who has ever known someone who has known us will be gone. But still, it is important that we were here and that we loved and were loved. And even when the day comes that no one with a faint memory from an old fragment of an old story remains to tell the story, that once we were alive, and once we loved, and somehow we still thrived, and that once we were not orphans. Postmodern Beatitudes. Blessed is the morning coffee. Blessed is the sun before the rain. Blessed is the greening tree in spring. Blessed are the flowers that grow wild. Blessed is the garden tabby that consorts with gnomes, stands guard at the gate, and rubs against your leg when you are alone. Blessed is the backyard possum that eats ticks and rodents, plays dead when he is scared, and rises from the dead when you look away. Blessed is the squirrel that raids the bird feeder, the cat that chases the squirrel, and the dog that scares the cat. Blessed are dog walkers who scoop, and the silent leaf blower when your neighbor takes a break. Blessed are the bike riders, the lonely, the young lovers, the skateboarders, the joggers, the mommies pushing strollers, the daddies carrying daughters on shoulders, and the moss that fills the empty spaces in between. Blessed are the truth seekers and those who arise to promote the best interests of the people and the kindreds of the earth. Blessed is the pure, kindly, and radiant heart, for theirs is sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. Amen. Thank you. And I hope I didn't run over time. She told me 30 minutes. Okay. I actually timed my poems. And some of you may or may not come to other PSC events, but come support them. If you're writing poetry and you're not a member, become a member. Because your membership makes these things possible. And we are greater together than we are alone. Thank you.
Couple of great readings this evening and a warm spirit in the crowd, and we thank you again. Please check the website, and if you're not getting our newsletter, let me know and we can send you our newsletter that we give you the events in. So you can check for events on the website. You can also look for our newsletter, or always just email me at everycornereverycounty@gmail.com. Every corner, every county @gmail.com with questions about what the PSSC is doing and how you can be involved. Thank you. I have coffee over here. Please enjoy and come again. in my. Lots of good words on Zoom out, lots of good words on Zoom. Good night, everybody.